I'm Kristerfer Burnett. I represent the 8th District on the Baltimore City Council. So the primary role of the council, we're actually legislators. So what we're, primary role is advancing policy for the city. A lot of that may impact your district if it's, zoning changes, or just, a lot of the policy ideas I've come up with, whether that be working on issues like human trafficking or affordable housing, have come from conversations in community about what folks need. I've done stuff around trying to deal with like nuisance properties, holding businesses accountable that aren't being beneficial to the neighborhoods that they're in. Healthy corner store initiatives, stuff like that, have come from conversations that we've had with businesses or talking to business owners or talking to community leaders. And so your job is sort of, gaining an assessment of like what needs to be done in your district, but more importantly, a citywide perspective of what does the city need. And then there's sort of the other side of the coin, which is constituent service. So, which is most of the job, most of the day is spent just responding to issues in your district, reports of illegal dumping, somebody needs housing, there's a fire, there's a shooting, just trying to respond to the needs of the community as folks reach out, helping people navigate city services, they're having issues with water bills or trying to get in touch with an agency to get a permit. You're kind of a problem solver for constituents. I would say those are the two things that are like the primary role. And, I like to think we do above and beyond in my office where we host
Mhm.
events like resource fairs and back to school events and festivals. We have a STEM festival coming up this June at the Cahill Fitness Center to highlight the, robotics and arts and drones for kids to try and get them connected into that.
That's really cool.
And so, it's like, it's a wider range of stuff that we do as a public official.
Got you. And I think people need to know that there's so much that you all do. And that's really, really
Mm.
important. With Black-owned businesses, though, it seems to me like they're on an incline. Like you see a lot more Black-owned businesses than I'll say 5 years ago or even 10 years ago. Like, where do you think the state of Black-owned businesses is right now in Baltimore?
I mean, I think that it depends on, the industry that they're in. I think that there's a thriving food service community among Black-owned businesses. One of my favorites in my district is Sugar Mamas, for example, which
Yes.
is Black-owned. They're from the community, Black women-owned. I mean, they are a real asset in the gym for us. But there's not too many like them. And I think the challenge with a lot of Black businesses is trying to find access to startup capital or sustaining their business operation, or in Sugar Mama's case, like I think at some point they're going to outgrow that space
Yeah.
that they're in, and trying to make sure that that we can still keep them on this side of town is a little bit of a challenge when you're competing with the rest of the city. I think one of the things that, popped up to me on the during the pandemic was the real disconnect when it comes to like contracting and working with the city. I think
Mhm.
is a huge issue that I've tried to tackle in my time on the council. I passed legislation that how can I explain this like easy to understand? Essentially, when there's like a state of emergency,
Mhm.
agencies get to like bypass some of the like minority and women-owned business requirements when it comes to like procurement of things like mask and all the stuff that we were using,
Right.
other types of equipment, for the sake of being expediting the process. Or we need X amount of this product as quickly as we can, rather than sort of going through the normal process. They can kind of fast track it, which in an emergency, I do understand. If you need emergency supplies, you need them quick. But oftentimes that means smaller businesses, minority or women-owned businesses are left behind in that process because they may not be at that capacity or have the resources to respond as quickly as needed. And so you see this sort of same businesses getting the same contracts over and over again. And so I passed legislation to pull that piece out. And so in an emergency, you still have to go through the MBE process, even though it's in a little bit of an abbreviated window. And also was pushing the agencies to do more to connect Black and brown businesses to the city's contracting systems, because there's a lot of there's a lot of money in city contracts, whether you're talking about construction, managing workspaces,
Right.
cleaning buildings. I mean, you name it, supplies. There's a lot, and often, one of the things I found out during that time was that, for example, there was a Black woman run business that made masks and had been in business for a decade and had never had a city contract. And had we not slowed down that process, she wouldn't have gotten a contract with the health department. We would have just went right over. And so I think it's about, as policymakers, our job is to be intentional, and making
Mhm.
sure that while we are trying to move quickly and deliver for our constituents, that we're also making sure that we're including Black and women-owned businesses, um, at every corner, because these can be, these contracts can change someone's life. They can build capacity in that business. They can help them grow quicker or get other government contracts. So I think, as a city, we can do a lot better when it comes to how we procure business and partner with Black businesses. And then also just making sure that we're, funding things like incubators and startups, because a lot of the Black and brown businesses are just that. They're startups in Baltimore, but they have an opportunity to thrive. And we've seen a few brands here and there that have really gone national when they've gotten the proper support and the infrastructure behind them. And I think that doesn't have to be the exception. That should be the rule.
Right. How does someone, go about putting it out there to find these resources per se for their Black-owned business or their potential Black-owned business?
Yeah, I mean, City Buy is the how you register with the city. We also always encourage folks to get connected to Baltimore Development Corporation. They are supposed to be the city's like sort of entry point to both incubating small businesses. So they within the BDC, they have a small business administration run by a guy named Paul Taylor, who helps with they have classes on like how to get contracts with the city, how to position yourself, whether it's city, the government contracts or federal contracts. But also they have just other resources on just like balancing the books and, how to, acquire property and then, sort of everything that you need to know to build that physical infrastructure is there. And unfortunately, it's like one of those sort of well-kept secrets that shouldn't really be a secret. A lot of folks should know where to go. And then also it's just about, plugging in bigger businesses. I mean, we have a lot of large scale corporate entities that receive tax incentives from the city, to construct these big buildings. A lot of what we should be thinking about as policymakers is how do we, make sure that those contracts require that they're doing local hiring or that they're contracting, as they're doing their construction for houses and everything else, that the folks that are on those sites that are, whether they're considered they're building the buildings, they're doing, hanging the drywall or anything else, need to be in that pipeline, so that you can build capacity that way. I think is a big deal, and something that we should really be pushing people towards. But I think BDC is a good entry point into how to work better with the city.